Since safety measures are pretty lax in my part of the world and I had 2 hours to kill, I decided to take a break from wallowing in my existential dread and go see if I remember the layout of the local cinema, because it's been ages since I went outside, and also to see DC's newest ball-busting flick, Suicide Squad 2, which to me sounds much better than the ever-confusing soft reboot-worthy title of the thing in question plus the word "the" in front of it, because that makes asking what movie you saw quite a hurdle. Did you go see the Suicide Squad movie or the Suicide Squad movie? And who better to direct it than Marvel's banished child, James Gunn, director extraordinaire and author of some of the only films in the MCU that I would truly consider good, perhaps even great. And since Gunn's history with Marvel is a tumultuous one, what better way to blow off some steam than by lending his talents to the competition? But let's not tippy-toe around it, because this is a spoiler-free review and you got places to be and theaters to watch films and infect yourselves in, so let's skip to the end, shall we? Is the Suicide Squad good? Yes. Is it better than the first one? Yes. Is it better than Guardians of the Galaxy? What? What's next? You're gonna ask me if it's better than Infinity War? They're different types of movies, and that's the thing. Gunn seems to be really good at wearing different types of hats. On the one hand, you can definitely recognize his signature style in this. On the other hand, no, it's not Guardians of the Galaxy. It has its own identity, and that's a good thing. The soundtrack is his signature style as well as the humor, but there's also a lot of DC in it, in a good way. A lot of stuff that just wouldn't make it into a Marvel film, you know what I mean? And not just because of the R rating. If I'm being honest, which I am, this movie is more or less what I thought I was gonna get from the first one, minus the subtle hints of a dark tone that mostly got left on the cutting room floor. There are gruesome jokes, sure, but the overall tone in Suicide Squad 2 is very light. So light that Irreverent almost doesn't do it justice. The movie really doesn't take itself seriously and is about as far away from an Oscar bait as Joss Whedon's hairline is from his eyes. And that's fantastic as far as I'm concerned. If I had to guess what the production process was for each film, I'd say it probably went down something like this. Suicide 1 said, let's make a fun movie. In 6 weeks, right after BVS tanked, with 2 different cuts and 14 different editors, and keep it PG while cutting this stuff out and putting this stuff in, and also cutting this other stuff out because Will Smith and the soundtrack took all our budget. Whereas Suicide Squad went, let's make a fun movie. That's it. I know it's not fair to compare, but there are so many things it does better than the first one, including pacing, which is improved through a non-linear narrative structure, which everyone says can't be done right, except it works wonders here because it allows the film to catapult you straight into the action and then flash back to the setup later. It's almost like telling a joke in reverse, like when your friend asks you if you know the one about the farmer that got kicked in the balls, to which you reply no, to which they then proceed to attach the rest of the joke to the punchline, and it somehow still makes you laugh, because it's fun to find out how the farmer got kicked in the balls. And another thing it does better than the original is action. There's so much action in this that it's liable to make a 90-year-old vagina moist again, to the point where action fatigue almost starts to set in. In fact, that might be the only, not negative, just caution advised sign. There will be blood, there will be guts, and just when you thought you'd been through the lion's share of it, the movie vomits a fountain of innards all over you and your obnoxiously large bag of popcorn. I know it goes without saying, but it's called The Suicide Squad for a reason. On the other side of it though, there's some jokes and fights that you just can't do in PG, and Squad 2 takes full advantage of its rating, pulling all sorts of nasty yet creative shit out of its sleeve that damn near borders on high art. High art for someone like Harley Quinn, I mean. Speaking of, yes, she's good in this. Surprise, surprise. She gets plenty of opportunities to shine without overshadowing the rest of the cast. There's a particular scene she has that I'm pretty sure every single young woman I know is going to love the shit out of because it's moral, empowering, and fucked up. The trifecta of moist vaginas. And the whole cast was pretty damn good in this. Gunn has a knack for taking weird, out-of-the-box, D-tier comic book characters and making them shine. So many characters that on paper shouldn't be likable are very likable. And I really want to stress that this is an ensemble cast. You might think, looking at the promo material, that Idris Elba's character is going to be the protagonist, but he's not. His role isn't really that beefy. It's just barely enough for him to have some semblance of an arc. And yes, I know he's basically Deadshot light, discount Will Smith and all that, haha, but Elba does some pretty good acting in this, in my opinion. The rest of the newbies also do a good job. John Cena kills it as Captain Douchebag. He has an anime-worthy scene where he just appears in his shorts with no explanation. It's great. Obviously, the shark is going to be the fan favorite. Either that or the rat. Don't ask, just go see it. This movie is so ridiculous and so conscious of it that it goes out of its way to make sure that you don't take it too seriously. It's like a stand-up comedian doubling down on a joke just to make sure the audience gets it. At the same time, it does manage to also inject a couple quieter, more intimate moments in there. Balancing those two things is hard, but the movie pulls it off decently well. And I gotta say, I went into into this expecting a lot of character deaths, and still the movie caught me off guard a couple times. There's one character in particular that gets murdered to death whom I genuinely thought was gonna live, and I really liked that character. Maybe to some people they came across as kind of whatever, but to me it's almost like the Suicide Squad just isn't the same without him. Plus, they didn't really seem to have it coming like a lot of the others did. But yeah, good on you, movie, for having the balls to indiscriminately juggle with your characters so close to the ceiling fan. You go, girl, give Game of Thrones a run for its money. And I feel compelled to go back to the action for a bit because some of the choreographed stuff in this is really good. It's been said before by other YouTubers, but overall DC just does fights better than the competition. And while there are ridiculous moments where you have to suspend disbelief, they're not as many as I expected from a movie of this kind. And again, because it has limited time with each individual character, the film goes out of its way to flesh the cast out as much as possible through not just words or body language, but through the way they fight and kill their targets too. The whole film just drips with personality and blood. Lots of blood. The other, let's say, luxury that the movie had and that I appreciate is that it didn't have the burden of setting up 3 Batman films or 4 Harley Quinn spin-offs. No, it itself plays off like a spin-off, but the fun kind. Much like the Suicide Squad itself, it comes across as a footnote in the grand scheme of things. Yet, when you take a closer look at what goes down over here, it becomes clear that this is where all the fun is.